Thank you, and good evening. I'm Warren Sawyer. I was one of the original founders of MEND. I've been asked to give a few brief remarks of the history of the early days of MEND. It started with Boyce Adams, a man with a vision, a sensitive conscience, and a concern for a group of neglected Moorstonian citizens. He saw the possibilities for a change of housing for this group of forgotten people on Beach Street. The formation of the initial endeavor started in 1969 with participation of church members. Representatives of the area churches were invited to meet and discuss the idea and possibilities. Other churches followed a short time later. I believe Boyce's basic driving force was, it can be done and it will be done. That's a pretty good motto. As an organization, money was the first consideration. The representatives of the churches were to organize a fundraising campaign to start the project. A total of $18,000 was raised by these pioneer churches. We had some problems to overcome, of course. 20 Beach Street row houses were in deplorable condition. No central heat, very basic kitchens, rooms that were very small, and a common attic. We had planned on demolishing these homes and moving the residents across the street into new row homes we were building. MEND needed recognition. More importantly, had to first be recognized as a viable entity before we could go further with the township, then to the banks and the lending institutions. Remember, we were dealing with a social attitude that was different from the present day. In public hearings, we were always last on the agenda for discussion. Consequently, by the time our turn came at 10:30 or later, most of the people had departed. Additionally, required changes to our plans were dealt out piecemeal, a tactic which further delayed any forward progress. A public meeting was held specifically for the approval or disapproval of MEND. Advertisements had been posted, word of mouth had spread the word that this was the last and final hearing. The upstairs rooms were jammed with people, as was the whole building. They filled every seat. It was past midnight when the Township Committee called a recess and went back to their private quarters to discuss the question of approval. After a period of time, they came out and declared that MEND was turned down again. This was the final hearing. MEND was not accepted. Dead silence prevailed for 2 seconds, if that long, at which time a man spoke up saying, "Who will go with me tomorrow morning to Mount Holly to serve an injunction against this township?" In less than 2 more seconds, the Township Committee asked for a 5-minute recess. They returned and said, "MEND is approved." I'm sure that roar that occurred at 12:40 a.m. at least loosened some of the old nails in the roof, possibly cracked some plaster. In closing, I would like to remind us all of Boyce's oft-said words. It can be done, it will be done. This was a driving force to help men get started. We can now say for Boyce, it can be done, it will be done, and is still being done. I'm sure that this night was a joyful fulfillment of Boyce's hopes. Thank you, and I hope everyone enjoys their party, dancing, eating, and a good fellowship.
Welcome. My name is Harold B. Wells. I was one of the 2 representatives from the Methodist Church to the MEND board. The early organization of MEND was particularly interesting. Boyce saw that this project was something to do in and of itself. He wanted to focus on Beach Street. He wanted to start small and renovate Beach Street as best we could under very, very adverse public circumstances. I was a young lawyer practicing civil and criminal law in Burlington County. Boyce asked me to represent men in connection with legal issues that might come up. One of the biggest obstacles for men was public attitudes. People didn't want housing built for low and moderate income people. But Boyce seemed to be able to bull through those kinds of attitudes and get things done. One of the questions that has come up is, what do you think inspired Boyce Adams? Well, first of all, I think it was his spiritual development within the Presbyterian Church. And secondly, I think it was his entrepreneurial spirit. The thing that I'm most proud of about men, we started from virtually nothing. No money, not much community support. We took it from there and ran with the ball. And today you have a wonderful, wonderful housing company that is devoted to providing better housing, safer housing for low and moderate income people. If we survive over 50 years like we have, we can survive another 50 doing that.